I'm on my way to Lillooet for lunch, which means over and back across the Duffy. I'm start recording with my little helmet cam just outside of Pemberton in the rather scenic and peaceful Pemberton Valley. So, here we go. Off to the right there you see the top end of Lillooet Lake. A lot of this end of the lake got filled in a couple years ago when the side of Meager Mountain came down and completely took out that whole area. It caused quite a commotion and stir through the Pemberton Valley as a huge wave of mud came washing through. But as you can see, the water's cleared up and it's a really nice looking lake. Now we are starting our climb up onto the Duffy. You're going to see something that's very dangerous for bikes, and that's an awful lot of very fresh tar snakes which are absolutely slippery as ice. Now here's something you don't want to see. This car in front of me completely cutting across the center line onto the oncoming line. These are very narrow roads with blind curves all over the place. That's a very dangerous move. These tar snakes were quite an issue. They required full attention and a good grip on the handlebars. Like I said before, it was like hitting ice. And off to the right there is the Joffreys Glacier. I'd pull in there on the bike, but it's an off slope and it's gravel and it's slippery and it's no place to try a big heavy motorcycle. Now I'm stuck behind a station wagon pulling a trailer, and he has no intentions to let anybody by, but he's white knuckling it through the curves. However, if you know the road, you know that right up ahead is a little straight section and you can pass if it's safe to do so. What you need to know is at the far end is a very narrow wooden bridge followed by an immediate 90-degree left turn. So you don't want to build up too much speed here unless you can get slowed right back down again. But it's a fun place. The Duffy is a fantastic road to ride on a motorcycle, especially the way I'm doing it right now, alone and with very little other traffic. You could almost say it's good for the soul. trail on the sunny side of the ridge. The afternoon sun is warm on my face and the view is the best there is. The valley below stretches deep and wide, cloaked in a forest of green. And the river flows on down to the sea, fed by the snow and the rain. It's a quiet spot beside the trail, the breeze is fresh on my face. The sun is warm on the rocks and the ridge, there's a coolness in the shade. There's a scent in the air from the spruce and the firs and from the cedars that still remain. Where the river flows on down to the sea, fed by the snow and the rain. There's a trail on the ridge with a valley below, a beautiful place to know. And the river flows on down to the sea, fed by the rain and the snow. The sun still warms the trail on the ridge, across the valley is slipping low. The valley is cast in twilight, it's nighttime now below. The river is dark in the shadow so deep from the mountains where night began. And the river flows on down to the sea, fed by the snow and the rain. From the trail I watch the valley below as it slips into the night. The passage is peaceful and good for the soul, but never changing sight. The melting ice from the mountains beyond runs down to the valley below. And the river flows on down to the sea, fed by the rain and the snow. There's a trail on the ridge and a valley below, a beautiful place to know. And the river flows on down to the sea, fed by the rain and the snow. And a valley below, a beautiful place to know. And the river flows on down to the sea, fed by the rain and the snow. River flows on down to the sea, fed by the rain and the snow. I wrote that song with the Squamish Valley and the Squamish River in mind, and a little nice hiking trail I know up above there. But the feel and spirit of the song certainly fit this ride. Okay, we've started to drop down toward Lillooet. And it doesn't show up well on screen, but we're going down quite steeply. It's a long grade, and you can see a very tight switchback coming up. And we're going to go around that thing in low gear. Caught up with another biker who was clearly not comfortable with the tight curves on this road. Other than that, they were doing fine. They could use some training from our safety and training officer in the club I'm in. Another one of the wooden single lane bridges that are quite common around here. You got to make sure there's nothing coming the other way, and you have to be very sure that that wood is not slippery when you're on a bike. But it adds to the flavor. That biker is veering off and taking the bridge over the Fraser River, and I'm heading on up into Lillooet. Lillooet's a really cool little town. It's set on a high bench over the Fraser River. Gets god-awful hot there. But the town is spread out for a couple of kilometers. You wouldn't want to walk Main Street because there's more nothing than something. And if you're wondering why the video's going back and forth, it's because when I'm in any area that there could be pedestrians or side traffic, I have to turn my head continually to make sure everything is where it should be. Okay, now I'm coming back down out of Lillooet. There's the bridge over the Fraser River that other bike took, but I'm going to stay to the right and head back on up over the Duffy. Here's the famous Lightfoot gas station. There's a bit of a restaurant and variety store in there as well. If you need gas, you better get it then, because there's nothing for another 100 kilometers of rugged mountain road. And we're heading home. Oh, what the heck. I'll pull into the lookout that looks over Seton Lake. The other end of Seton Lake is Anderson Lake. This is actually a big hydro reservoir, but it's down in between the mountains, and it's usually absolutely glass smooth. Gorgeous scenery. Just a nice place for tourists and other people and normal people even like me to stop and enjoy the view. Now I'm coming back to that switchback, but this time from the bottom side, so therefore we're climbing uphill. It's actually a little easier to take climbing uphill because you know you want to be in first gear and you're pulling instead of braking. But as you can see, it's a long slope and you got to keep your eyes open. Something you do not do on this road is override your line of sight. If you do, you'll be off the road, and that can be either the rocks on one side or a long way down on the other. This spot had been one of the more treacherous single-lane wooden bridges, but they've taken it out and put in a real nice, wide, by local standards, 2-lane concrete bridge, and it's wonderful. Used to be two 90-degree turns, one on either end of it, before that trucks couldn't even make that turn. It was so steep. That's the Duffy Lake on the right-hand side there, nestled between the mountain and the highway. And that puts me about halfway back over the Duffy between Lillooet and Pemberton. And I'm on my way home. I had an absolutely fantastic ride, and I hope you enjoyed this little bit of a video. I'll have to do it again sometime. Bye. Oh, not quite done. Do you remember this bridge? This is where I passed the station wagon pulling the trailer. You can see that nice tight 90-degree turn. Happy trails!